Hi, and welcome to the Retirement Rabbit Hole. My name is Dan, and I retired a few years ago, and I get curious about a lot of different things, and sometimes they suck me down into a rabbit hole. Um, and generally, that's a good thing, but occasionally it's troublesome. And thought maybe I'd share some of those adventures with you. This first video is about treasure hunts, and that's something that I had heard things about treasure hunts. I guess the Forrest Fenn one, something that took place out in the Rocky Mountains years ago, um, was the first one that comes to mind. But occasionally a treasure hunt would come up or something, and I'd catch wind of it. But that was as far as that would go. A few months back, my wife gets contacted by her brother, and he says that he had seen something on the news about some type of hunt that was going on, and it seemed like something we might be interested in. So I checked it out, and sure enough, the fall down the rabbit hole began. This first hunt is called Project Skydrop. So I head out to the website. The link is in the description below, and find out that someone hit a trophy in the woods somewhere within a 500-mile radius circle in the Northeast. The uh, the hunt is active for 21 days. It That 500-mile radius circle shrinks every day until the last day when it'll actually be a 1 foot circle. So somebody will find it within 21 days. There's a live webcam showing the trophy at all times, updated about every 15 minutes. And optionally, you can join for about, I believe it's $30, and get daily clues. And the clues turn out to be drone pictures of the trophy taken at a progressively higher elevation each day. So, as I said, the circle shrinks by some amount every day until on the final day it's only going to be a foot. When I first started looking at it, this was the circle, and it was already. I'm not sure exactly how big the diameter was, but it was down quite a bit. But as you can see, it's kind of centered somewhere in New York State. Includes a little bit of Mass, Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. So it's still a pretty wide area that this puzzle could have been, or this trophy could have been in. This next circle is when it got down to a 95-mile diameter. And at this point, it seemed like it was, well, certainly centered in Western Mass. And it seemed likely that it was probably in Western Mass somewhere. But it still could have been in southern Vermont or eastern New York State or northern Connecticut. But since I live in Western Mass, it got really interesting at this point. So it was at this point that I decided to actually join and get the clues. Um, the this picture shows the prize money, and the top prize was the amount, the appraised amount for the trophy, primarily the gold that was in the trophy. So that's actually a pretty interesting value on its own. So that was worth trying to find the trophy. Um, and then the bottom number was a bounty that was a growing amount every day, and that was based off of 50% of the the money that was pulled in by people joining was added to the bounty. So as more people joined, the bounty kept going higher and higher. That number that you see on the screen was where it ended up. So there was a significant amount of money to be had if you managed to find this prize. It was interesting enough without the prize, but certainly that was more incentive to go out and see if we could find it. So this picture, so you could go out to the website at any time and see this feed of the trophy sitting in the woods. The picture that you saw was updated every 15 minutes, so it wasn't a live stream. Um, but it's it was interesting because you could actually see what was going on. And in this case, you actually see that there was a squirrel checking it out. Um, I tried to use that to my advantage by asking any squirrels I saw if they knew where the trophy was, but they seemed to be keeping quiet about it. A couple of things that turned out to be useful that you could see from this view is that you could see that those are beech trees in the view, although I'm not sure I would have been able to identify that. Uh, and you could also see the time and the date up in the top left and the temperature in the top right. And at any point in time, you could go out there and you could tell what the weather was like. You could see if it was cloudy or not. You could see if it was raining. And one thing that the people who set this up spent a lot of time with is the angle, just to make sure that you couldn't see things like planes flying over and stuff like that. But in any case, there was enough information here that was able to help the winner figure out where to narrow his search and ultimately find the trophy. Um, so these are some of the drone images that I was getting. This first one uh, was actually available. I had joined after the first day, so I think, I don't know, it was probably around day 6 or 7 when I joined. So this first photo was already out there, but you had access to all the earlier drone pictures, so you could see what had been shown prior. This first one is telling you a little bit about at least that where the site was, but it doesn't really give you much information. It's pretty much just the top of the trophy at a really low level. One of the interesting things about these drone shots and an incentive to join early was the once you joined, you were emailed these pictures on on the successive days. As so every day you get the next picture, and the timing on when you joined. So if you joined earlier, you would get the email earlier. So there was incentive to join and not just hold off and wait until it got closer to the time, and then you'd want to check it out. And anyway, I thought that was a smart choice by the people running this to get more people to join earlier. This second picture is a day 5 picture, and it doesn't tell you too much, but as it turns out, this is somewhat helpful because um, it shows you a couple of fallen logs, and including one that's got a lot of moss and mildew on it, and that turned out to be handy. And once people started searching in the woods, you could get some sense of what you were looking for when you got close enough to where the trophy might be. This next picture is day 7, and the trophy is still visible, although I'm not sure you can see it in the video, but it's right in the middle. And at this point, you're starting to get above the trees. Um, and at this point, this pretty much I think coincides with the second circle that I showed you, where um, the trophy, you knew it was somewhere likely in Western Mass, but you still had little pieces of the other states around it that were part of it. Um, and this next shot is from day 12, and now we're above all the trees, and you can't see the trophy anymore. But all you're seeing is the tops of a bunch of trees, um, and so it's not particularly helpful. There's really no specific hints on um, something that you could identify to send you to a particular area. Um, I believe this was the day that we first decided to go out and seriously take a look. The circle had gotten down to where it was only in Western Mass, and actually it eliminated some parts of Western Mass where I thought this could possibly have been, like in the Berkshires and um, something like Mount Greylock area or whatever. So that was out, and some of the lower Hamden County area was out, which also had some areas that I thought I might target. So, given what was left, I thought the Wendell State Park or Wendell State Forest actually looked like an interesting spot to check out. Um, and so we took a trip up there and walked around for a few hours and checked out a number of trails, and it became really apparent when we were doing that even though we were down to, I don't know, it was like the 95 or maybe even somewhere around 75-mile diameter that we were dealing with, that it was really like looking for a needle in a haystack, because you knew it wasn't on the trail, it was going to be off trail somewhere. And so there was just no telling where you should be going. That didn't stop us from hiking, and spending a lot of time poking around, and we'd go off trail in an area that just, somehow seemed like maybe there's a potential for hiding it here or there. Um, and yeah, we didn't find anything that a couple of times where it seemed like, oh, this really could be the spot, but we never did find it, obviously. Um, and we didn't didn't realize, but on the next day, the trophy was actually going to be found. But before we get to that, I'll show you the final um, picture, the day 21 picture from the drones, or the drone shot. Um, Now on this shot, you can see actually all kinds of things, including the river, some a little bit of road stuff. There's some tennis courts and a playground area, and some power lines and access roads into the forest. So by that point, once this information was available, certainly somebody would have found it. And again, actually on day 21, people would have found it anyway, because there was only a 1 foot diameter circle that they had to look for. Um, Essentially, an X marks the spot. But in all likelihood, I would say maybe 3 days prior to this, there was probably a pretty good chance somebody would have an idea where to look and might have found it. Certainly, by the time it was found, the prize money was up pretty good, and it seemed like it was growing exponentially. So there would have been a lot more people combing through the woods if um, by the time we had gotten to, say, day 18 or so. Um, But anyway, on the next day, following the day in Wendell State Forest, we decided that Mount Toby State Forest, which is a little south of Wendell, was a good place to look. So we went there, and that turned out to be a very interesting and a fun day. Um, we still didn't find it, obviously, but there were a lot of people that had come up with the same idea. Now, prior to the day we had gone to Wendell, we saw maybe one other person that might have been looking around. Didn't talk to him, so we don't know for sure. But the day in Mount Toby, it was like a party. We knew as soon as we got there, the parking lot, which usually has two or three cars in it, was packed. And as we're walking around, there's people poking around everywhere. And we get into conversations with people, ask them, if they had any luck or whatever. Obviously, nobody did, but they were open to it. Occasionally, if somebody asked us, I'd tell them we already found it, and I was hiding it from them. Um, but the, uh, the other things that were going on, we came across a, a couple of guys that were in um, were four wheeling through some of the trails that typically you don't see any vehicles in. And actually, they asked us if it was okay if they were there, and I said it's fine by me, but I really don't know if it's okay. Um, One of the other things that was happening is you could hear pretty much all day there was a plane that was flying overhead, and couldn't figure out exactly what that was. And it turned out later on that somebody had chartered a plane and they were trying to map out the trees up above to see if they could figure out exactly where this thing was hidden. So people were definitely getting into it. Um, so anyway, we obviously didn't find it in Mount Toby, and then we drove home. It was, I don't know, it's a couple hours, maybe an hour and a half ride. We drove home, and I come in the house. I decided to just check the webcam, and this is what we saw. Um, so all of a sudden, it's like, what? It's gone. I wonder what happened. Did somebody stumble upon it, or maybe somebody else, maybe the people running this thing decided to take it for maintenance. I don't know. There was a lot of different things running through my head, but um, now part of this whole thing is when you joined, you gain access to like the archives, which you could see the older drone shots. You could also gain the archives to all the pictures that were taken of the webcam that was showing the trophy, and you had access to a Discord server, Discord server was something new for me, but it was essentially just a big chat room that you got to go and talk to people or listen to what was going on out there. Um, I had been on it a couple of times prior to that day, and there was just a bunch of chatter back and forth. A lot of people, I guess, playing the game, so you didn't never felt like it was particularly reliable information that was being talked about out there, because nobody wanted to give away what their secrets were. But in any case, on that day, I logged on, and it was a buzz. Um, there was all kinds of stuff being talked about as to who found it and stuff, but certainly it was agreed upon that it had been found. Um, and it was surprising to most of us because I think there was still about a week left, and it didn't seem like there was enough information to figure out where it was. But um, in this picture, you could see that, and that was the day. Um, the picture So the winner had seen it and found it, probably about an hour before I had checked and noticed that it was missing. Um, so you can see him, his legs here anyway, reaching over, getting ready to pick it up. Um, and eventually, once we found out more about who it was and how it happened and stuff like that, you found out that he was a weatherman from the Boston area, and he had actually used weather data against the temperature and rain that he had seen in the webcams to figure out a likely area. And he apparently also had access to some forestry data someplace that showed where beech trees grew. Anyway, smart guy. I give him a heck of a lot of credit for being able to figure all that stuff out. Um, and it turned out that he found it in Wendell State Forest, the place we had been 2 days earlier. But he was in a place, part of the state forest that we had never actually been to, and we certainly didn't didn't go there the 2 days prior. But it was, I don't know, bittersweet to find out that it was found in the place that we had actually been looking. And so now that the trophy was found, the second part of this uh, hunt, if you will, was to begin. That was something that I was never particularly clear on and what was involved, but it was something that was required in order to be able to claim the bounty part of the prize, which, as you saw, was a bigger chunk of the value of finding this. Um, and so this what became apparent as some pictures started showing up, and to some extent you could see them in some of the other pictures that were always available on the website, was that there were markings on the trophy. Um, Here you can actually see some of the tiers of the trophy and how they have some holes that look like maybe there's some type of code that's on that. This next picture here, you can actually see that on the bottom tier there were some pictographs on it, and here's a close-up view of some of those pictographs. And then finally on the very bottom are uh, there's a view, and you can see there's some other types of symbols, so not like the ones that were on the last couple of pictures. So ultimately, without getting into all the detail, um, things were figured out, and the balance of the money wound up going to the winner. There was a lot of back and forth and some controversy, but in the end, the person who should have gotten the money got the money, and they figured it out, and there were a lot of back and forth on from a puzzle standpoint. Um, but in general, I considered it a fun experience. Um, and Yeah, I certainly didn't expect to win, but it was still a lot of fun following along and seeing how people cooperated, or in some cases didn't. And and if something like this came along again, I'd sure likely get involved. At this point, there's no particular suggestion that these people are going to do another one. I think they were kind of disappointed that it got discovered so soon, and that the money didn't grow to where they were hoping. But I think all in all, they probably were semi satisfied with it, and it was a kind of a unique experience. Um, so anyway, it was enough that got me interested in trying to search out what else might be out there, and